now, and I'm really interested in hearing what everybody has to say. We try to fit in as many people as we can today, but my name is Jacqueline Goldstein. I'm the curator of the Jewish Museum of Florida here in Miami Beach. And really what we're dealing with today and why I created this workshop is, an issue that we're having, and I think most museums are having, is this struggle today with YouTube, Instagram, and Netflix, for example. And everybody's basically using everything from their phone to, their iPad or even on their smart TVs, and they're looking for shows, podcasts, etc. And everybody's working with the immediacy, able to interact almost, as I said, immediately. And they're coming from, all over the world interacting together. And the workshop that I created was how all over the world, us as colleagues, how are we going to, or how are we facing up to this challenge? And you'll see in the background, I put a few video games. This is one of the favorites here in the States. It's called Roblox. So I'd like to begin, and I don't want anybody to be shy. I want to really, this is, important for us to figure it out. How are we dealing with this? So I'm going to stop share with my screen, and let's see. You want to start, Rebecca? Do you want to tell me, how are you? You can unmute yourselves, everybody. And, let's go. Rebecca Gibson, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so Rebecca, first of all, tell me about yourself. Where are you coming from?
I'm in South Bend, Indiana right now. And I'm here at the Inclusive Museum Conference as a emerging scholar. And okay. So I've been chosen to moderate this panel. Basically, I'm just here to facilitate any questions or discussion, particularly on the conference website. We have that wonderful website set up. There's a discussion section there. So if anybody wants to put questions, comments, etc., I will be there for that.
Great. Okay. We also have my colleague, Nancy Cohen, here from the museum. She's giving me any kind of technical support on my end as well. So that's wonderful. So Rebecca, so you're just working with the Inclusive Museum. Are you seeing anything in your community about, about this issue? Is it affecting you at all?
So I'm an archaeologist. I work in museum archaeology, looking at skeletons and looking at artifacts. And unfortunately, we've been completely basically shut down. The museums that I generally work with haven't been accepting scholars. So I am seeing this particular issue of needing to pivot to online, needing to have the accessibility, and then of course not having it because we don't have a lot of things prepped, particularly the skeletons that I'm working with. Okay,
that's a lot of fun. So it's quiet in your office.
Oh, yes.
All right. Juniko, is that how you pronounce it? Junko or Juniko? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Is it Junko?
Junko. My name is Junko. Yes.
Welcome,
nice to see
welcome, Junko. So where are you from?
I'm from Japan.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is very morning. It's 5 o'clock.
Oh yeah. My brother lives in Singapore, so I'm well aware, of it's quite a long flight. I've been to Asia a number of times.
Yeah. It's a completely opposite time zone. So yeah.
So how are you dealing with this issue? Are you in Tokyo?
Next to Tokyo, so mostly very close.
Okay.
Yes.
So how are you dealing with this issue of competition in the digital age, getting visitors in? And
so I'm my major is paleontology, so about fossil, and I used to be a curator, but now I'm independent museum consultant about social inclusion. So I would like to get the idea about in here. So that's why I came here. So.
Mm-hmm. Do you see in Japan with you or your colleagues? Are people still going, even with COVID? I understand it's always been, it's difficult for us, but we're getting back to going to the museums in the States. And we're trying to get a handle, even though, COVID, obviously the numbers are down, we're trying to get a handle on who's coming in age-wise, different cultures, who is coming in and how has it changed within the past, I would have to say, before COVID. So are you seeing any of that with museum going? Are museums open yet in Japan?
Now it's almost mostly open. So yes, but of course it's 1 year ago or 2 years ago, it's closed. So yeah, so of course we use online, but most museum staff would like to go back to before COVID-19. So like
Right.
face-to-face, but I think it's not so good. I think we should use online also, so because many people can participate using online. So therefore,
Okay.
but most people
So they're not,
don't want to.
so they're not going in. You just said the magic word online. Do you feel like they're not coming in, or?
Actually, I believe online and digital is good tool for museums, but most museum staff in Japan do not think so. They love face-to-face, like this
Good.
kind of things. Yes.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Junko.
Thank you.
Chelsea, are you there? I don't know. Chelsea, are you there? Okay. Sifan, are you there?
Hello,
Hi,
could
Sifan.
you hear me?
Is that right, Sifan?
Yeah, perfectly. Pronunciation is Sifan, so very
Okay.
perfect pronunciation. Yeah.
Where are you coming from?
Well, I'm from China, but I'm currently a PhD student at the University of Barcelona, Spain. And I also involved in exchange program in Paris. So actually, I'm in Paris currently now at the University of Sorbonne.
Okay.
And yeah, and I major in management of culture and heritage, but my investigation line is focused on the museology and mainly about the transformation of art museums in China, also in East Asia. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So about today's topic, I do think it's a good tool or communication method to promote the museums content and also public activities online, especially in this post-COVID period. But I don't think such media tools or media platforms will absolutely replace the experience inside. So yeah.
Are you feeling like that just for Asia? Or are you feeling, that that's the wave of what could happen?
Well, in Asia, particularly in China, there is a general trend to establish virtual museum in China, particularly in mainland China, because the high technology in China is like undergoing, and it's like a general background in the museum practice in China. But its future or its sustainable future, currently I do not see a very clear objective, and it's just like a promotion, a very initial promotion. And in general, from a general global perspective, I do notice that in Paris, for example, the Centre Pompidou, it just posted or uploaded its latest promotion, so attracts more tourists, and particularly domestic tourists, and it's also just a promotion for attractions, but not the main method or the main approach to disseminate its exhibitions or its museum culture. Yeah. So it's
Okay.
my basic idea.
So what would the main approach be? Because we're all trying to figure it out how to do it. So what would be, what is you're saying promotion, what is the main approach that you work?
Well, I just think the mutual communication face in face or in person would be the everlasting approach, and the essential significance of meanings for the museums in 21st century, I like to say, because people don't need involved in themselves in such an in-person touch, particularly in such very complicated period.
So
Yeah.
that is a good question. And you're saying the personal touch. So, I'm trying to think of how would we approach that? How do you get with the personal touch? How do you get people in with a personal touch? Do you have people on the street? I mean, how is it? Are you advertising on billboards? How is it happening there? How are we keeping in mind the fact that someone can actually go into a museum versus just seeing digital offerings?
Well, it's a good question. So currently in this short period, I have to say that the physical obstacles exist, and so that part of museums just change their objective public target to local audiences. So this is one of the strategies to re-attract the local audiences for public participations. And about global movements or global mobility, I just think it's influenced by the situation of this pandemic, but we can see more or less the world is mapping, and yeah, so I think we could help the future would change, and the regular criteria would come back. I don't know. I'm not sure, but it's just my hope. Yeah, to continue such a physical touch and mutual communications. Yeah.
Right. I've been giving virtual tours for our exhibits, certain exhibits that we shot and were able to use a software called Matterport. And we had a photographer basically move throughout the gallery, taking digital images of the entire show. And then when I do a digital tour, I'm literally moving people through the show, which is great because it brings this to a wider audience. But then, again, the question is, you want these people to come. Yes, I can virtually take them through, but what about the experience that can't be replicated? I want to, I'm trying to understand how we as museums are going to, deal with that, because to see in person cannot be replicated virtually.
In some cases, in the behind the scenes work that I do with the skeletons, it's also a question of who is getting digitized. So the people who were skeletonized and then used for scholarly work in the museums, there's a huge debate among anthropological museum scholars about whether digitization is reasonable, respectful, responsible, something, this question of, are we doing the right thing for the deceased as well as doing the right thing for the scholars? So it's very complicated.
That's an interesting take on it. You're having to do with a total different atmosphere also, is how do you deal with it with the deceased? So you're really,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
We use a lot of 3D technology in anthropology, particularly paleoanthropology, as those skeletons are way too old like they're thousands and millions of years old and there aren't any relatives around. So we do the 3D scanning in order for people to be able to access the collections that way. But it's time consuming and it takes a lot of digital space. And then you have the question of who's curating it and also who can access it, because it takes a lot of computing power to both view the 3D models and then to print them if you want to print them.
Okay, so are you holding any kind of programs around, you know, your research in archaeology, or the things that you're finding, or new research?
Not me specifically. I'm very peripheral to this at the moment. I have some colleagues, though. My colleague, Dr. Becca Peixoto, works at the Perot Museum in Texas, and she's one of the discoverers of Homo naledi. And so they've got both on site and then on their website programs that allow people to view the fossils and manipulate the fossils and access them that way. But yeah, I'm very peripheral. I do the research. I'm not in charge of getting the research done.
Okay. It's so interesting hearing on the archaeological perspective. Chelsea, are you there? Chelsea, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. Sorry, I've been having some audio issues and I'm on break walking through the streets of New York City, so it might be a little loud, but I am here. I'm here not from a immediate curatorial sense in that I work for a museum, but I am a maker and I work a lot of times with community organizations or art galleries. And I tend to make work that is very visceral in nature, particularly that around gender violence and some, difficult topics to discuss. And so one of the things that I'm thinking about, just like.
Uh-oh, we might have lost Chelsea. But that's it. I hope she gets back on soon. That's a very, another aspect. I think she was saying she, is an artist doing her work, and she's got a, hopefully she can come back on soon. But that's another, another commentary is how is an artist today going to show her work? And I know, to get a museum show or a gallery show used to be a huge deal, and everybody's coming and everybody's seeing, and that's how you're promoting either your exhibit or your artwork, etc. And today, are you guys using Instagram at all for your museums?
I have an Instagram. I don't think anybody I know in the anthropological world uses it for museum demonstrations or exhibits.
Okay.
On the other hand, I make my students curate certain things, like find a bunch of pictures related to X and curate it as a museum exhibit on things like Instagram, but also Jamboard, which is through Google and that type of thing.
Okay. All right. Chelsea, are you back? I think Chelsea, are you back?
I am. I'm so sorry. Did you hear anything that I said?
No, not since, what was the last thing you were talking about? I think Instagram. No, I don't remember.
I think I was trying to say that I work with a lot of intense subject matter. And so one of the things that's really difficult for me is trying to navigate the fact that once things are on the internet, they either live forever on the internet, or it's so easy to take screenshots or to share things that I just might not want to share in that way. They're supposed to be shared in an intimate person-to-person space. And I'm trying to navigate how to still have difficult conversations and have an intimate community in such a vast digital stage.
Right. What kind of artwork do you do?
I do a lot of performance and installation work. And so I talk about things like gender violence and interpartner or domestic violence, trauma and health, and looking at like public health crises.
Okay. So how are you going to, we were just saying, you know, as an artist, it was always really important to have gallery shows or, you know, museum shows or something to interact with, you know, with public. How are you dealing with that? How are you getting people to, especially with performance art, how are you dealing with that?
Yes. So I'm attempting to take people, I'm trying to navigate taking small amounts of people from digital platforms like Instagram or things like that, and trying to host via Zoom and FaceTime and other platforms, small, more intimate gatherings. And granted, those things could always be screen recorded, and people can always share that information without other people's consents. But working with a smaller group of people in like a specific space that is delegated for us is bringing some form of community and intimacy, while still being able to do some things semi-digitally, but still kind of not quite in person, but intimate is the word I keep going back to.
So when you say intimate, are you talking about a small group online or an intimate gathering physically?
You know what, right now it's hard because I'm trying to figure out how to do that in a more hybrid sense, because some people are comfortable doing that and some people still aren't. And so a lot of times that means, you know, people want to meet outside, which poses another problem, because once you're in public, the controls just kind of go out the window. You can't control who completely sees what you're doing, whether that could be, you know, I don't like the word per se, but can be very activating and intense, maybe depending on the subject matter. So again, trying to find partnerships of places that have like small outdoor spaces, like courtyards, that again, kind of bridge this liminal space between public and private.
Right. So how are you basically advertising yourself? How are you getting people to see your work?
You know what? I'm really bad at it. I'm so bad at social media because I have a hard time putting myself, I'm sorry, it's so windy. I have a really hard time putting myself out there and like marketing myself like a product, especially my own body. I'm attempting to use the regular platforms like Instagram and Twitter and things like that. But I'm really thinking about switching to like meetup groups and kind of pairing my performances and my work with teachings and just like kind of support group type atmospheres. So we'll see how that goes.
You know what, I really hope it's not the case, but what, you know, an interesting point that you just made is people are using digital platforms. And, you know, especially with performance art, you know, this is my fear that people are going to really, really start to switch over to digital. I don't know whether it's because they're looking for a more global audience or whatever, but, you know, that's what's concerning me, is it seems like people are shifting a little bit. You know, I know, you know, this is not possible anymore today to be focused solely on in person, because the world has become so global and so interconnected. So people obviously want the exposure, but, you know, I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think this is a shift that's not going to shift back to more in person, or what are your thoughts? Somebody speak.
You know what? I think that the world is going to get increasingly digitized, but I do feel like there's going to be some hybrid nature to it. I think the pandemic has been a great case in point, and that we're kind of thinking about how we can be more flexible, and we're thinking about what everyone's abilities and needs are, not completely, not much as we probably should, but like working from home and things like that, and coming to the office a certain amount of days a week. And I know with like things like, I don't know, the metaverse, there's some blending of this digital and the non-digital. I think that once we kind of turn the corner, whether we have or not, it's really hard to know what's happening with the pandemic. But once we do, I think that there is going to be a shift back to intimate in person, just because we haven't had that. But I don't think the digital is completely going away. I think it's here to stay.
I would like to see a switch towards more digital, just from the accessibility point of view. But at the same time, with the research that I do, there's absolutely no substitution for being there in person.
Right.
I want to take measurements, I want to take photographs, I want to have the bones in my hands, or I work on corsets, bones and corsets, that's what I do. And I want to look at the corsets and see the patterns of wear on them and see the materials that they were made of and actually feel them. And you can't do that digitally. And even if somebody else takes the photographs for you, it's probably not going to be the ones that you need or that you want necessarily. So from the behind the scenes angle, from the museum scholarship angle, I think I would argue for digitizing your objects as much as possible and putting them up there for scholarly use, but at the same time recognizing that you should be making space for scholars who need it, because you really can't substitute that.
Yeah. That's going to, I mean, it's, I feel like so far this discussion, we're so, I'm racking my brain trying to think of, I guess it is, digital is here to stay. And, so far nobody's, has an answer for me. Oh yes, we're dealing with this and this is how we're dealing with it, and, in your case, Rebecca, of archaeology, I think nothing beats the real thing. I mean, getting in to see what is on display, especially for you, because it's a three-dimensional artifact. It's just,
yeah, it's so my typical day at a museum I would be working at would be to sign in and then go to wherever they store the skeletons, make my selection from their accession numbers, figure out what I'm looking for, and then ask to look at that, and then spend the day at a research bench, taking photographs, making measurements, sometimes 3D scanning, but sometimes not, and just, being there and feeling those objects in my hands. I looked at how corsets changed the skeletal structure of women who wore them. And you can't, like, from the pictures I've taken, which are good pictures, you still can't get the full effect of how drastic a change it was.
right.
And again, this comes down to what digitization technology is available and who's going to be doing it too, which is another question posed to museums in general, is if you are pivoting to digital, who's doing that pivot? Are you paying people to digitize your collections? Are you paying people to have those online interactive seminars? How are you doing this?
That's a very good question. Obviously, museums have to start getting, gearing grant, if they are getting grants, gearing more towards that. I mean, have any of you been going to museums recently? Jungkook over there, anything?
Yes.
Have you gone?
Have you, sorry? Please.
Have you gone, what's happening by you? Have you been going to museums?
Yes. It's I think it's the same things happened before COVID-19. So
Okay.
I think I already said I think people think Tokyo is very digitalized city,
Right.
but actually not so much. So, and especially museum staff doubt about virtual and digital, and they believe real issue, real material. So, but I don't know how to say. It's about inclusive, so it's many people can participate using digital. So like people who cannot go out, like disease or disabilities, so but they can join about using digital. So some museum people try to this kind of things. I think it's a very great project, but not so widely. It's not so widely, so unfortunately.
So are you happy with the digital shift?
I'm not digital person, but I think it's good tool for I don't know, for everybody. Like
Okay.
I don't know how to say. It's like this kind of meeting, so I can't
Right.
join. So
Right, of course, of
therefore,
course.
yeah. So therefore, I think it's a good opportunity for everybody, but many people do not think in Japan. So
Well, I mean, that's what I was saying, having to do these virtual tours. So yes, it is giving you a much wider range of, I guess, places to go. But I guess that makes sense. You can go to Paris from your living room, or Paris from your phone, looking at an exhibition there. But I'm wondering, are we going to be curating at some point in the future with the majority of people visiting digitally on platforms that we have already installed, or are people creating new software? I really don't know. But as a curator, you're looking at this future, and we are on the forefront of something of a shift. But my concern is, how far is the shift going to move? I mean, people are just starting to kind of go back to the movies. I'm seeing a little bit of that, and here in the States. And, so it's not, so that is a shift that is happening. I am seeing some people going back into shopping malls. I don't know if they really stopped, but I am seeing some, we are seeing a little bit, maybe because people, like you said, I think Junko, you said people are ready to get out again. But, so they are getting back into, cultural, a little bit slowly shopping. So Amazon and less, and, I guess people want to be seen and go out and do things. But, I'm just, I don't know. I guess nobody really knows how we're going to deal with it. But I hope museums will be included in that, with people returning to museums, or returning, as they're returning slowly to movie theaters. Here in the States, people are going into restaurants again. I'm not sure how it is by you guys. Chelsea, I know New York is kind of, yes and no, wear the mask, don't wear the masks. I don't know. I was just, what's your comment, Chelsea?
Yeah, it's very confusing, especially since I tend to go back and forth between New York and Philadelphia, where I went to grad school, actually at Moore College of Art. But, the same thing with Philly is it's back and forth. And again, I'm wondering if the shift is not going to be to go back to the museums in full. I mean, I have been going to museums here, and they seem to be, but New York is such a packed place. It's hard to tell. The Met is alive and well. And I'm going to be going to the Whitney Biennial soon, so I'll be seeing how, they're dealing with this. But again, I keep thinking that the small is going to be where the small gathering is where people are going to want to go. They're going to want to have less people. They're going to be wanting to probably engage with these liminal spaces, these, whether it be partially outside or what have you. But it's really hard from a financial and an energetic standpoint to be facilitating constant small groups, just in terms of trying to make money and having a certain amount of finite time in your day and in your week programmatically. So I think it's going to be small, but I think that's going to kind of further tax us a little bit.
Yeah. How are you seeing, galleries changing, exhibits in New York? Are people coming to the galleries? What are you seeing as far as individuals with their art exhibitions versus, a museum?
Yeah, I'm seeing a little bit more of that. I live closer to the Upper East Side, and there's an organization called is it Chashama, and they actually work with like businesses that have places that have gone out of business. So like retail spaces that are empty and being unused. And they use grant money to bring in artists that can install work, whether it be in like a storefront for people walking by on the outside, or on the inside, and you can come and engage with that. And I'm seeing a little bit more of that. I'm also seeing some outdoor initiatives such as like crochet murals and like an uptick in street art a little bit. So that's what I'm seeing.
Okay, so basically bringing the museum outside.
Correct. Yes, it's like Night at the Roxbury. If anyone remembers that. The club is on the outside and the inside is,
Right.
like,
What's crazy? I was thinking of that movie the other day.
Really?
Yes, with Officer Hottie. I don't know why I thought of that movie, but yes, the outside on the inside. That was a great movie.
Exactly. And there's a lot of people that just like don't like, I'm going from one job to another right now, which is why I'm on the street and it's so loud. In terms of access, time is a part of access, money is a part of access. Being able to get to a gallery space or to be in a museum and feel comfortable, all of these things are questions about access. And so again, I think hopefully, maybe just because I work in community-based artwork, again, I'm wondering if we're just gonna be interested in our neighbors and our walls in our neighborhood and the fences in our neighborhood, and think about those things as gallery space.
It's a I mean, what you're saying is showcasing a completely different landscape, really. We have in Miami a lot of street art, and it's something that they are really, really promoting here. I don't know if any of you have been to Miami, but we have an area called the Wynwood Arts District. And that is, all commissions of artists painting, graffiti all over the walls, the buildings around there. And, so people are walking around. That's obviously outdoors because it's, all the artwork is sprayed on the walls, and they do commission in some areas. So there are artists changing, and people are running around Wynwood, obviously because it's outdoors. So you don't have any kind of issue with really with COVID related, but that area is still really happening, obviously because it's outdoors. And and maybe that's another shift that might, as you were saying, Chelsea, that might be happening, is more things, might start to be happening outdoors. I guess that's, I know that, I think it was Sifan was talking about promotion, and maybe that's one of the answers, is doing more outside of the box, so to speak, outside of the museum. I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? Does that sound like something? Wynwood is working, like I was telling you here, the art on the walls. Maybe we need to, I don't know, on the streets somehow,
like to utilize the public space or the on air space to get more close to the public, and like to have more natural conversations with the public, or only the passing by in the streets. I don't know. I just feel such kind of subtle trend in Paris. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's, on the one hand, that works great for a museum that's on a busy street.
Yeah, yeah. Like the site selection is most important. Also, the convenient public transformation. Yeah.
Chelsea, have you done any performances, just street art performances? I mean, I'm born and raised in New York. I live in Miami now, but I remember in Washington Square Park, we used to be, you know, people obviously doing performances there. Are you doing anything on the street? Any performance art? Chelsea, are you there? I don't know. I don't know if she's still there, but
I am. I'm
oh,
sorry.
you are? Okay, okay. So are you doing any?
And I'm home now, so it's quiet. I am starting to get back into that front. I think the weather has also made it very complicated, as it's absolutely freezing. Like today is kind of cold again. So I think things are going to start picking up a little bit. Unfortunately, like I said, I've had to just maintain some of the digital. And when I go back down to Philly, I try to get with people who are fellow dancers and performers and do things with them. But I think we're going to start seeing it. I think spring, there's just this like untapped energy that's starting to bustle up. I think people are going to be really excited to get outside and to see art and all these different things. So hopefully we can do that outside moving forwards. But I think archaeologically, I'm thinking about the archaeological, how do you bring things like that outside? I'm not sure.
Well, we do occasionally do participant archaeology where we allow people to help with it. But for the main research portion, yeah, it's definitely an inside thing. You want the artifacts to be, ironically, protected from the elements.
Yeah.
Having been underground for so long. So we're pretty much out of time. This was meant to go to 4:45. Any final thoughts, Jacqueline? Any final thoughts?
It's been terrific, and I really appreciate you guys coming on. And I feel like a takeaway is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a takeaway here is we need to, Rebecca, I'm not sure how you would deal with this, but you know, when possible, performance art or you know, regular art, I should say, sculpture, painting, whatever. I feel like there might be a shift towards exterior, you know, exhibition or performance space, and then obviously the digital.
Well, here's hoping. Thank you everybody for coming. You've been absolutely wonderful. I want to remind you again about the discussion section. When you go to the conference website and click discuss on the online program for this session, it'll take you to the discussion forum. I will be watching and moderating and commenting on all of the comments. So far, there's only me. So we'll see you there. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you so much, Rebecca. Should I end the meeting on my end?
Yes, you should.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys.